Hello, my name is Juliet. I'm host and creator of Unique or Typical podcast. If you want to see more episodes of Unique or Typical, subscribe to this channel. And if you wanted to become next guest of one of upcoming episodes, just go on uniqueortypical.com and fill out form or contact info@uniqueortypical.com. May you introduce yourself, please?
My name is David. I'm from Singapore, currently studying at the National University of Singapore, majoring in information systems.
Let's start and we'll talk about stereotypes about your country. Can you reveal most common stereotypes about Singapore and Singaporean people, the one that you heard?
Well, for Singapore, I believe there's quite a few stereotypes, but for the most stereotypical one would be because of the recent movie, The Crazy Rich Asians. I'm not too sure whether you have heard of that movie. And so many people think that Singaporeans are really rich, but it is not actually the case. So there's just one movie that just depicts like a lavish lifestyle of one's minority of Singaporeans. But actually, if you look at the statistics as well, the GDP of Singapore is, I would say, higher than USA, but majority of the Singaporeans here live in like government housing. So we are not necessarily rich by any standards. And also, I guess, to elaborate, another common stereotype would be that we Singaporeans like to complain a lot, like complain about, like, let's say if something is not right, or something, let's say the food doesn't come out correctly, we like to complain and then like ask for things, extra things. I would say in a certain extent it may be true, but I believe like the younger generation like myself are more civil, in a sense we don't do that as much as you could say the aunties and uncles here, which is I would say more prevalent. But yeah, most of the time we are pretty nice people. Yeah.
I understand. Singapore located in Southeast Asia, and it's include main island, as I heard, and 63 more small islands. So can you explain a little bit about the territory of Singapore, and also if all these small islands as well as main island are inhabited by people?
Yeah, to be very honest, it was my first time also knowing that Singapore has so many smaller islands, but I believe like we do have a few that is inhabited by people. So the main island, you could say, is Singapore, the Singapore Island. Singapore itself is a very small country. We are also known as the Little Red Dot, and it's located south of Malaysia. And to give some context of how small we actually are, Malaysia is 459 times bigger than Singapore, which is like, if you put it in perspective, is very huge in comparison. So I guess a closer comparison to where you guys are at right now, like for example, Moscow is around 3 times bigger than Singapore. So the whole country of Singapore is actually like 1/3 of Moscow. So that's very, very small. And we do frequent like a lot of, I guess, more known islands by my standards actually. So we do have like islands like Coney Islands. We also do have like Pulau Ubin, which is another place where we do for recreational purposes. And also we do have islands that we do for military training as well, such as the Pulau Tekong. So yeah, that's, I guess, as much as my knowledge of the islands we have here in Singapore.
Singapore known as one of an Asia economic tigers. So could you explain about your life in Singapore in general, and about possibilities that like being the economic tiger, what possibilities it gives to people who live in Singapore, who was born and live in Singapore, and in general about your life, what is difficulties and what is beneficial parts of living there?
Well, Singapore has transformed itself from a small fishing port back in the 1960s to like a global metropolis financial hub. So we've come a long way. And I would say the living standards has increased drastically as well. So previously back then, there wasn't much schooling as well. So now actually schooling is mandatory from up to, I guess, primary school. Not too sure about secondary school, but schooling is also subsidized. So in a sense that everybody have equal chance of getting the correct education. And I would say our society as well, it is based off meritocracy in a sense that it is based on like your merit and your ability to do well. And I would like to believe that for the most parts, the schools in Singapore are given equal resources to be able to allow the students to flourish in their own rights. So for us in Singapore, I like to believe that we are given equal opportunities to succeed. So for a student growing up in Singapore, it is sort of mandatory to go to school up to primary school. And from that onwards, based on your skill sets and what you like to do, you are able to do whatever you like. But generally, we are given equal opportunity to succeed. So for example, if let's say you're academically inclined, you can go through junior college and enter the university. On top of that, let's say you would like to do more hands-on work, more practical work, and learn skills for the workforce, you go for a local polytechnic, which allows you to, gives you the right skill sets. Like for example, if you want to learn engineering, you can have an engineering diploma. And on top of that, there are also different pathways like the Institute of Technical Education, which is providing more like, let's say, food and beverage, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I would say we have equal opportunity to succeed, and it's all based off meritocracy. And in that case, like in my personal opinion, like despite the local economy being bigger than most of our peers in the Southeast Asian region, we are still very small. And to grow it without lowering the standard of living, in my personal opinion, I feel like it would be a challenge. Like we don't want to be the same similar position like Hong Kong, which is like, for example, everybody's living in tiny boxes. So this is where our leaders, in a sense, are taking up the very difficult task of leading our country. And having grown like as much, like I feel there are a lot of innovation that's happening here in Singapore as well. We can also do like startup, like we have a very large startup scene here in Singapore as well, and that's where I'm also quite interested in. And on top of that, we also have a very, like in terms of tourism, I believe more people are picking up the pace and entering Singapore as well. So we are slowly picking up where we left off pre-pandemic, and I feel that in the future we will grow up and come out a hit stronger as well.
Singapore, it's one of the most innovative country in the world. So can you please explain me maybe the newest innovations that you have in Singapore, and also maybe the most important ones that you have?
In terms of innovation, Singapore, one of the key contributors of Singapore being an innovation hub, I guess, would be that we have a very strong talent pool, in the sense that a lot of people want to come to Singapore to work, and that's where like we attract top talent to be able to like do the sort of innovation stuff that we do. In terms of like what is, you could say, innovative or not, I wouldn't say we are definite to being able to produce something on a very global scale as of yet. I personally myself, I'm not very not too sure of what there is, because like everything moves so fast, and that it's hard to keep up of what there is. And like for example, like in our country, like there's a lot of money being poured into the science and engineering research. So I believe like the and as well, like I said, similar before, there's also a strong startup scene that promotes the culture of innovation to be able to explore new frontiers. So in terms of like giving you what is the best innovation, I don't think I'm at a position to say, because maybe there's things popping up here and there. But I believe like given our small country size, a lot of companies would like to come to Singapore to be able to like test their products. So that's where I see us going in the future. and also being able to produce more top talents like that may be also contributors in the whole global scene as well.
And what is the main languages in Singapore?
We have four main languages. Our predominant language, our primary language would be English, and then we have our mother tongue, which is like based on your race. So Singapore has four main languages. One would be English. For Mandarin would be for the Chinese like myself. We also have Malay for the Malay race, as well as the Tamil for those that are Indian as well. And as Singaporeans, like I said before, we learn English in our school, and then however, like for myself, like there's a lot of for my race, which I'm Chinese, so there are a lot of different dialects. Like for example, there's Hokkien, there's Cantonese, there's also Teochew. So in a sense, those are dialects that are not taught in school, and usually they are passed down from your family, or like let's say you go for let's say extra additional classes, extracurricular classes, you can learn those languages as well. And most of the time, in terms of it brings me to the next topic of like religion as well. So based on your race as well, you do have a certain kind of religion that you usually go for. I'm not saying that it is like you must do this race. Like for example, let's say I'm Chinese, I must be a belief in Taoism, I must believe in like Buddhism. No, it's not like that. Like we are free to choose whatever we want to do here in Singapore. And for myself, I'm actually Christian, so I believe in Jesus as well. So yeah, I guess there's freedom in that aspect as well.
Yeah, I understand. And what is the main population religion?
Oh, wow, actually, I'm not too familiar. I think it may be because Singapore is made up of like I guess 70% Chinese people. So you could say maybe it might be Buddhism in that sense. But I believe like Singapore, there's a large population of like other religion, people that practice other religion as well.
So now let's talk a little bit about nature in Singapore. I know that Singapore is one of the more greenest cities in the world. So you protect, even though it's like a city of skyscrapers and it's a lot of buildings in there, but it's still very green inside the city. You have a lot of parks. So can you talk about it a little bit and maybe explain if Singaporean people connected to the nature, if they do hiking a lot, if they do running in the parks, and in general, what lifestyle people have?
Singaporeans, in terms of the lifestyle and connection to nature, I would say we have that option to being able to go about and do like those activities. I would say that constitutes like the great planning of like the leaders here in Singapore. They actually given like our landmass, we are quite a tiny island. We don't have much space for like greenery as such. So they actually do a lot of planning to be able to incorporate that into our city structure. And like I would say, there are a lot of like parks around like different neighborhoods. So like the local residents are able to go to that parks to like, let's say, relax. And also there are a lot of hiking trails throughout Singapore as well. So you can, on the hiking trails, there are possible, like for example, you can also go to a park connector. What I mean by that is basically you have different parks, and then you can have a connector, so you can travel between the parks as well to be able to go to the different park. And then on that park connector, you can also like, for example, run, or you can cycle as well. So cycling and running, I would say, is one of the top you could say activities to really stress here in Singapore as well. Because as you know, Singapore is a quite stressful place as well, because everybody is moving very fast. And in terms of like where how they are doing and what there is actually, for example, some of the innovations here is that they are incorporating a lot of greenery into their structures for like the building, and they are getting like some awards for it, like by when let's say they make a new building, they're incorporating like green aspects as well. So that is something that Singapore takes great pride in as well. And on top of that, where I think this will go definitely it will be I guess a big part of Singapore in the future, and I believe we can do a lot more. For myself, where I like to go, well, I like to play golf, so I usually go to the nearby, you could say, golf range, and there has a lot of greenery as well, so it's like an escape as well. So yeah, there's some things about me.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. And what about animals in Singapore? Which kind of animals do you have? Do you have dangerous animals? And if you ever meet some snakes or something dangerous around you?
Snakes? Yeah, I guess snakes. We do have some snakes, but not the dangerous kinds. Like usually it's just garden snakes at most. I mean, I do because I used to live near a forest, so I did happen to come across a python, but that's really very rare, very rare. For the most part, most Singaporeans live in like government housing, so the most you would see like I guess like cockroaches or which is not even like a deadly animal. In terms of like what animals we do have in the wild, I I guess the dangerous one would be wild boars. Like wild boars are like pigs in the wild, and they have like tusk, uh,
Ah,
like an
yeah.
elephant. Yeah, so wild boars. Other than that would be monkeys. Monkeys here and there. In the zoo, well, the zoo we have a lot of stuff. Generally, Singapore, we don't have much animals. So most of the animals in the zoo are actually imported, I believe. We don't really catch those animals here in Singapore. In terms of like maybe safe animals here, I guess if you happen to like, let's say, go across the river, like let's say you're hiking across the river, like running across the rivers and all this, you can see like otters. I don't know whether that's something you're familiar with. It is like a small cute creature. You can Google it later. It's OTTER. And Singaporeans love otters. So that's something interesting. Yeah.
I understand. And I heard that in Singapore you have first in the world night zoo. Like you go to the zoo at night, right?
Yeah. Night zoo, I don't know whether it's the first in the world, but I guess it is, I guess, something interesting. I personally went for it as well. It's quite interesting. So most of the time, some of the animals are more active at night. That's why you would like to see them when you are like, how it goes is like you sit on a tram, like a bus, a mini bus, and then you go through, and then like there'll be narration like from the speaker, and then they'll tell you to look at like what the lion is doing. I can't remember whether they gave us binoculars or something, or like to see it in like the night glasses. I can't remember, but I remember I was able to see some stuff. But definitely interesting experience, and if you guys ever come to Singapore, that is a must go.
And Singaporean, I don't know how you call it, like totem animal. It's a lion with a fish tail. It's like a culture animal or something like that. Can you explain me about this and what does this mean? Like lion with a tail fish.
Yeah, that the lion and the tailfish, the name of that mythical creature you saw, it's called Merlion. Mer as in the sea, and then lion, so it's like sea lion. And I guess where the pictures you usually see those in pictures are is at the Raffles, is around the Raffles Place area, south of Singapore, whereby you see the like the water coming out from its mouth. So that is, I guess, where it's located. But the origins came from, if I remember from correctly, it's when a Malay prince, like a prince back in the day when Singapore was still a small fishing port. There's a Malay prince that arrived onto the island, and the first thing he saw was a lion. So when he saw the lion, and that's where he said, okay, this is the lion's island. So they call it Singapura. And then Singapura is actually the other name for Singapore. So Singapore and then Singapura. It's like you can use either or to call like the island of Singapore. So that's where the origin came from.
Yeah, I understand. Very interesting. So Singaporean people traveling inside the country a lot, or you go or they go more commonly outside of the country? And can you tell me few destinations most common for Singaporean people to go on vacations?
Singapore is a really small country, like I said before. So from the west, east to the west, it's only like around 2 hours. So despite this, many people like myself included, we are quite lazy, so we don't really like to travel inwards. And but however, if you are interested in like let's say food, definitely you would travel to different places to try the food because Singapore is a melting pot of cultures and there are a lot of different kind of foods you can explore. So that is one of the reasons why we travel within Singapore as well. In terms of like local attractions, here and there are like let's say pop-up stuff or new stuff, and then it will probably be you could say hype or popular in the first few months, and that's where like Singaporeans all travel there to go and like experience the new things. So yeah, there are actually, I guess the pandemic as well, it allowed us to explore like what Singapore is and discover a lot of hidden gems. So some, I guess, tourist spots you could say like the Haji Lane, which is like which is very interesting place with a lot of colors like the houses as well, and a lot of very boutique shops. And also Sentosa as well, there's a beach as well, so a lot of people frequent there to go to like the clubs at the beach club and then go and like drink their cocktails and stuff like that. Yeah, so in terms of where we like to travel outside of Singapore, a lot of us like to go somewhere cheap because Singapore's unfortunately quite expensive. So for example, we like to go to our neighboring country, Malaysia. That's where we are able to do like maybe shopping or massage. So another place we like to go is like Indonesia, Thailand, Bali, which is Indonesia as well. We also like to go nearby, I guess, like a lot of Singaporeans like to frequent Japan as well as Korea because Singapore is located in the middle of Southeast Asia, so we can go anywhere very easily. And I believe that's one of the main reasons why Singapore is such a great place to be at as well. And plus, for the locals, we have a very strong passport. We can go anywhere without visa for the most part. So that is, I would say, Singapore, I would say is number one or number two strongest passport in the world. So that's why I think Singapore people are quite blessed in that sense to be able to travel a lot. Yeah.
This is really very good, very helpful. Because when you need to get visa almost everywhere, it's so bad.
Yeah, I understand. Visa sucks.
Singapore, it's known as one of the cleanest and safest places in the world. So can you explain me a little bit about this fact? Like Singaporean people really care about to keep the environment clean. And also I heard about one fact that in Singapore you're not allowed to do chewing gums, like to throw it somewhere because it's very high penalty for that. So can you explain a little bit about this fact?
Yeah, in terms of the cleanliness situation here in Singapore, I guess as a non-local, you wouldn't know how it works, but we actually do have a lot of, I guess, workers coming in from other countries to come and help to clean the city. And so that's where, like you could say, we are quite a clean city in that fact. And in terms of like the laws in place, we do have some laws like what you said, like the chewing gum law, as well as like bubble gum or like drugs. So we do impose high penalties on that, like as well as smoking. So for example, you can't smoke at certain areas as well, and there's a fine as well. And if let's say you throw your cigarette into like the floor and then you squash it, and like let's say police catch you, you'll get fined for like maybe upwards of $1,000. So it is possible to, I would say, escape the situation by, I guess, not even doing those in the first place, right? So yeah, for myself, as Singaporeans, we grow up like learning in our school education like how to keep the environment clean, and then like what do we do, because like if let's say we were to go around and just throw anything and everywhere, it'll not be a pleasant experience. So I don't think, however, we are at the level of like Japan. As you know, Japan is even cleaner than Singapore. It's much more cleaner than Singapore. So I believe we are getting there, but there's still much more to grow. And I believe in the near future, hopefully, we will reach there. Yeah.
For people who is not from Singapore, for foreigners, how to perfectly fit in Singaporean society, how to act or speak, or which mentality to have, or the way maybe you respect and understand mentality of Singaporean people, how to fit in?
Well, I guess for foreigners, you can just be respectful and have an open mind. Because like Singaporeans in general are more reserved in nature. So we're like, if let's say you need help, do reach out, and we will. So because we're so reserved in nature, we don't actively like come to you and say, hey, do you need help? So we are quite shy. So you have to come to us and, hi, do you know how to do? Yeah, that we will definitely help in that aspect as well. In terms of like how to integrate into local culture, it really depends on, I guess, like how long you're staying. I guess learning how to speak Singlish as well is something that would help you get acquainted.
What does this mean, Singlish?
Singlish is basically Singaporean English. So when you put it together, is Singlish. So what it basically is basically a slang of some sort. You could say a lot of because like we have so many different cultures and different religions and different races, so we have a lot of languages that gets mixed into English. And for example, let's say like let me put it into perspective. Let's say I say what lah, so when I say what lah, like the word behind la, it's Singlish as well. So knowing how to speak Singlish, I guess a lot of people a lot of Singaporeans will be like, wow, you know how to speak Singlish. That's great. This guy knows his stuff. So other than that, I guess learning like Mandarin, because a majority of Singaporeans are Chinese as well. So knowing how to speak a little bit of language, and say, like, for example, let's say you go to like a hawker center and then you want to order food, and then you can order in Chinese. If let's say the people are, let's say, older, and then they speak Chinese, and then you know how to order in Chinese, that will also like get some plus points from the aunties and uncles. So yeah, I guess that's really about it, like how you can integrate. Definitely read up about Singapore and our culture. That will definitely give you a much better head start.
And can you please name most important celebrations and festivals for Singaporeans?
For Singapore, we have a few festivals, or would you call it festivals, or you could say like holidays that are given to the people. So like, for example, as you know, because we have like the New Year's in December, and then when it comes to like around February period, that's when we celebrate Chinese New Year, because like majority of Singaporeans are Chinese as well. Then we also have like Ramadan period for the Malays, and also Deepavali for the Indians as well. How we celebrate them is a bit different from family to family, but generally I feel like, for myself, let's say for Chinese New Year, we go visiting our friends and relatives that we have never that we've not seen for the past year or so, and then from there we get together for a meal of some sorts. Like, for example, I guess a traditional meal we have here in Singapore for Chinese, for example, would be the steamboat. So what is a steamboat? It is like a pot, and then you have soup inside the pot, and then you cook stuff inside. You use your chopsticks, and then you cook, like, let's say meat, beef, like fish inside, and then you just dip it in some sauce, like some dipping sauce, and then you eat it. So that's like a communal meal, because that's pretty much like what we do in Chinese New Year. So yeah.
And can you explain a little bit about culture and traditional part of Singapore? Which traditions do you have, and maybe specific rituals?
traditions. I mean, in terms of traditions and rituals, like for a Chinese Singapore, I only can say for myself because I'm Chinese, but like let's say for myself, some traditions, let's say in marriage, for example, I guess this is very general in Singapore.
Yeah.
We Singaporeans are quite practical people. Singaporeans are quite practical people. So, and I guess we don't show a lot of emotion. Although we are Asian, we don't show a lot of emotion. And let's say when we want to propose to someone, we will like sort of ask them whether they would like to get a house together. So like that is like I guess something different. So because in Singapore, getting a house means like they call it the phrase when you say, do you want to get a BTO? So what is BTO? It is called built to order. And when you say that, it basically means like, hey, do you want to get a house? Because when you get a house, it means that you must get married.
You didn't say, will you marry me? You say, do you want to have a house together?
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, that's like, I would say a lot of nowadays, that's what people usually do, like implied meaning. The implied, it's not like I'm especially saying will you marry, but like you want to get a house together, yeah, that is something that we usually do because we are so like indirect, we are not say the most direct kind of people. In terms of like traditional rituals, when you like it really depends on the religion, so depends on the religion, you do different kind of rituals. Like there are like certain rituals for like, let's say someone passed away in your family and then you want to do a ritual. So like for example, a Indian family will do a certain different set of rituals to allow the deceased to have a send off to the afterlife. Also, like for example, if let's say you're Chinese as well and you practice Buddhism, a different set of rituals as well. Taoism as well. For Christian, we send them like have the wake, whereby we have people to come and visit the wake, and then after that go to crematorium. So like that's for example for death rituals. But in terms of like festivals and stuff, we do have some, I guess, festival, we could say rituals. Like we can call, would you say lion? Have you heard of like the lion dance before?
No, never.
So lion dance and dragon dance is to ward off evil, like from the new year, for the Chinese New Year. So those are like some of the activities or rituals you could say that a lot of Chinese people usually order when it comes to Chinese New Year. So you cleanse the house, that sort of stuff. So yeah, so that's like some of the I guess tradition and rituals that we do here in Singapore.
You told me previously that you ask not will you marry me, but let's will you buy house with me or something like that. But do you Americanize in the point of giving a ring? Like you still give the ring with diamond, or it's without ring, just you ask about house?
I would say no, that beat the will you get a house with me, that one is like it's an implied meaning. Not saying that every Singaporean do it, but like most of the youngsters these days, they like sort of like hint, like okay, like they're sort of like I think I'm comfortable with this person, I want to get it. So you can give a ring maybe with it or no, is really up to the person as well. Yeah. So you want to wait later and then officially propose. So that is another thing as well. Or you can just like, but you already know once you ask them whether you want to BTO, like let's say when you before you collect the house key, you must be married. So it is like let's say the house key is like you have to wait like 2-3 years or 4 years or 5 years. So within the 5 years you must get married. So it is like, I already know you're gonna marry you.
It's like a preparation before the marriage.
Correct. Yes, correct. Exactly.
Do you have some superstitions?
Mainly that comes from like your race as well as your religion as well. So it comes from your family background. And like for example, a lot of people say don't cut your nails at night, something like that. So some it's quite weird. So I think it all stems from like the different cultures and what we've been through. So it's like usually from our grandmothers, they're telling us, okay, don't like they also have this thing called feng shui in Singapore as well. Feng shui is basically the way you sort of put objects around your house, and it must be in that certain way, or else like there'll be bad luck. Yeah. So like for example, you cannot have your bed facing the door. You know, you cannot have that. But I wouldn't say that's everybody follows it. But for myself, I mean, no harm, right? Just follow, nothing bad will happen. You know. Yeah. So that is like some of the superstitions here in Singapore. In terms of like let's say more work-based superstitions, like for myself, I've been to the police force, and over there, like for example, if let's say you are in the car, like the police car, you cannot like knock on the car. If you knock on the car, you will get more bad cases. So there's like some superstitions as well that I think not many people will know of, because I mean myself, I was in the police force. Yeah.
Can you explain shortly about Singaporean food? Maybe the most common food for Singaporean during the day, and also more delicious and traditional food.
In terms of food, I would say we are quite westernized in the sense that there are a lot of different kind of Western cuisine here in Singapore. There, like anywhere else, we also have majority of the time we are eating like local food. So some of the local food that we have here, I guess you could, just to name a few, maybe you can do a Google search on what it is. It's like for example Hokkien mee. It's just some noodles and like there's like some seafood noodle. We also have hor fun, HORFUN. We also have prata. Prata is like you say fried, you say crispy dough. Yeah. So that's like from the Indian cuisine. We also have this specific dish as well, which incorporates rice and like chicken wings and stuff like that. That's from the Malay cuisine. It's called nasi lemak, NASILEMAK. So yeah, that is like some of the local cuisine here in Singapore that I guess for foreigners or tourists who would like to come here and try, definitely give it a go. Most of the time it tastes the same, but there are a few specialty shops here in Singapore. You can go and take a Google search. Like for example, Singaporeans love to eat good food, so we usually like type in where is the best nasi lemak in Singapore. Then you go to that store. And because Singapore is so small, everywhere is like 45 minutes, 30 minutes. It's definitely reachable by public transport. In terms of like what we eat for like breakfast, it really depends on you. For myself, I eat cereal. So that is, you could say Western. A lot like you can eat pancakes, waffles. It's really up to you. Really, traditionally, I think Singapore is becoming more Westernized in the sense that we don't usually follow like, okay, you must eat rice, you must eat porridge. You know, it is not that kind of stuff. But like definitely, it's one of our comfort foods as well. You can definitely eat porridge, or you could call it congee in I guess probably it will make more sense. I guess we also like to eat noodles, a lot of noodles, because we are Chinese people. So yeah, really, there's so much food here in Singapore, and definitely I can't pinpoint an exact one that is the most favorite here in Singapore as well. So yeah, just have to give it all a go and just come here and experience it all.
So talking about Singaporean people in general, could you please explain a common portrait of Singaporean person and Singaporean mentality? Just explain in few words maybe who is Singaporean person in general, of course.
Okay, what do Singaporeans identify as? Well, I can't say, because everybody is ultimately very different. Like, although we are a collectivist society, we are also individuals in the sense that we tend to also have our own differing opinions. However, like to just generalize, not saying that it's true.
Of course.
Like I said, Singaporeans are more reserved people, so they tend to be like they're only it is, you could say, not rare for people to be very extroverted and welcome a lot of different people, but generally the Singaporean crowd is quite reserved. So we usually tend to have like, let's say you're interested to make friends with Singaporeans, reach out to them and then they will open up. They'll open up to you. Also, I guess another personality type you could say is they are very hardworking. Yeah, so because ultimately everything is based on hard work and merit in Singapore, so we all try to do our best in everything that we want to do, and that's why like you could say Singapore people is progressing very fast is because like we have like a system in place that helps to facilitate growth and getting what we want through our own rights and our own abilities. So yeah, I can't really think of another way to put it, like what would identify Singaporeans as Singaporeans. I guess in a sense, if you are most Singaporeans are foodies. So to just generalize, a lot of Singaporeans love their food. So if you most of the time, if you introduce me to Singaporean, and they'll definitely know like the best places you can say that they feel that is good food. So yeah, that is like a generalization. Yeah.
And family institutions in Singapore are important, like people very connected to the family, or more individual and self-centered?
I believe it's more collectivist. We are ultimately an Asian culture. Like any Asian culture, we do respect our elders as well in Singapore a lot. So most of the time for people in Singapore, we live with our parents until we get married. So that is around like unlike like I guess like our American counterparts who I guess move out at age 18 years old to go to college. For ourselves, we live with our parents. So until like we get married, and then from there, we live. I guess Singapore is very small, so definitely we live close to our parents, and then we visit every like maybe weekend, you know, sort of stuff. In terms of like self-centeredness, I don't think we are self-centered at all. It's more of, I guess like the younger generation are becoming more expressive and being able to be confident in themselves and being able to portray that through, I guess, a variety of things. Like for example, they express themselves through making music. They also express themselves through their clothings and I guess their social media appearances. So yeah, really, but ultimately I still feel that we are a very collectivist society. So family is very important as well. And yeah, speaking for myself, for my family, we used to always go. Now because of university, we don't have much time. But like we used to go for family trips here and there, and also like we go out for meals together, you know, and then we eat at home together as well. Yeah, so I guess that is something that I guess is unique to Singaporeans.
And what age usually people get married nowadays? Not early, right? Not 18, 20?
Not 18, definitely. It used to be definitely back in the day, but I mean like 1960s or something. Nowadays, people are more comfortable getting married around like 28, 29, but Asians in general like to get married earlier in a sense. So maybe like the females would like to get married around 25, 26. But I think I guess the age is shifting up because most of the time we are becoming more career oriented as well. So that's where I think people are exploring getting married like 29, 30 years old. But it's not uncommon to see people getting married at 35 or 40. So yeah, it's really up to everyone.
And now I want to talk shortly about love and relationships in your country. And could you please explain me positive and negative points of dating person from your country, in your opinion?
In my opinion, okay. Okay, so for myself, I'm in a 5-year-long relationship, so it is quite long, and I believe for the most part, I would say Singaporean relationships are. I can't speak for myself especially, but I just generalizing. It is very practical, like what I said previously about like people asking, you know, like, okay, would you like to get a house? So it is, you could say, a little bit practical in a sense, and For the most part, dating really depends on who you meet. So I cannot really say like the positive or negatives of like dating like a Singaporean, because everyone is different in their own way. Some people are like, maybe not so good. Some people are very nice and helpful. But I would like to say like most Singaporeans are very open-minded, and they are really accommodating to different cultures. And like, for example, let's say someone would come to Singapore and like to get married to the people here, definitely the key to, I guess, getting into a relationship is to definitely understand the culture and understand like what let's say males want and what the females want. So yeah, it really depends on the people. I cannot really generalize in that sense, but a common stereotype that I guess most Singaporeans like know about is, let's say a female, they will like the male, the female would like the male to have the 5 C's. So what are the 5 C's? 5 C's. One is the cash, cash like money, cash. Then condo is the house, condo. Then the car, car. We also like to have a country club, and also credit card. So the 5 C's. So that is like a very general stereotype that most Singaporean girls like the Singaporean men to have. Yeah.
And the last question is about beauty standards in Singapore, because every country, have some specific beauty standards. So can you explain in Singapore if you have some?
Beauty standards, I believe, varies. Actually, I can't say there's a definite beauty standard in Singapore. Unfortunately, I might not be the right person to say this as well, because I'm not very focused on beauty. So I don't follow the trends as well. In that case, I could say that it is like anywhere else in the world. We would like, obviously, people to be healthy. That's the most important. If you look at there's, every country have their beauty pageants, stuff like that. And most for Singapore, the Singapore's beauty pageant, there are people from like all races. So you have the Malays, you have the Indians, you have the Chinese. So definitely I wouldn't say there's a racial preference of any sort. I believe everybody is beautiful in their own way. So it really depends on like the eye of the beholder.
So now it's time to spin in the wheel. I will spin the USDC wheel, and random amount of USDC will be appear on the screen, and this amount I will send it to your cryptocurrency wallet as a prize.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah. Dope. All right. Great. All right. Thank you very much.
USDC I will send to your cryptocurrency wallet. And also now we will spin an NFT wheel, and NFT from the section that will be appear, I will send to you. Okay.
Sure. Thanks.
Right.
Oh, right. Interesting. Nice. Great. All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for participating. It was very interesting to hear.
Hey, yeah, thanks. I'm happy to share the culture as well.